All right, we're back. We're still on page 53. We are still going through and writing equations for graphs, right? So we're given a graph of a trig function of some sort. We got to work out what. But the catch is there isn't really a right answer. There's just a lot of right answers, an infinite number, in fact, of right answers. So you go through the same process, though. You want to find the maximum, the minimum, use that to find the sinusoidal axis, use that to find the amplitude, determine the period somehow, whatever is convenient. And then go from there. So let's see if we can find some things. So the maximum is definitely going to be, what are we counting by here? Fives? 45. I think the maximum is going to be 45. So we got that. And then we also want the minimum. So the minimum is going to be down here at negative 15, it looks like. So let's fill that in. And then what we want to do is find the average of those, because that should be the sinusoidal axis, which is also d, right? When you're thinking of the parameters. So add them together, you get 30, divide by 2, you get 15. So that's going to be d. And then so let me put that in, because I think visually it's nice to see it. You don't have to do this, obviously, but it can be helpful. I mean, especially if you need to use the places it intercepts the sinusoidal axis to find the period, it's great to have the sinusoidal axis dotted in. So I have that in there. So the amplitude, right? You want to do top, take away, bottom. So we could do 45 minus 15 is 30. We could do 15 minus negative 15 is 30. Or we could go 45 to negative 15, which is 60, and divide by 2. Any of those will give us 30. So we know the amplitude, which is the absolute value of A, is 30. What we don't know yet is, are we going to use positive A? We can use negative A. That depends on where we start, right? Are we starting, is it a positive or positive sine or cosine? Is it a negative sine or cosine? You make those choices and then you know what to do. We do need to find the period. And this is going to be a little more complicated, because if you look, if I try to go like maximum to maximum, I don't really know like what this value is. I have a guess. I think it's 0.25, but like I don't really know. So what I'd rather do in this particular case, I think, is go from here to here, that's one period, to here, so that's 2 periods. So let's actually do that. So we're going to go from here to here and get 2 periods. So 2 periods. Take 3, no, take 1/2, 0.5, sorry. 3 is from the previous one. I was like reading it up there. 2 periods take 1/2, which means that each period takes half of that. So each period is 1/4. So I'm going to say, I guess to show some work, I'll say the period is 1/2 divided by 2, which is 1/4, which means the increment, which I really should have asked for, but you know, sometimes you don't like put enough stuff. Uh-oh, I think we lost contact here. Hold on, let me get out of that. Let's see if we lost anything in the. No, not really. Okay, so the increment is going to be 1/4 of that. So it's going to be 1/4 divided by 4, so 1/16. That's going to be really important, because look at what we got here. So start to maximum, fine, that's at 0. But then here, what is this value? Right? So that's actually, we know, 1 increment from 0, so it must be 1/16. And then we go again, we get to this point, but what is this point? Well, it's going to be another increment, so 2/16. So we're going to end up counting by increments, and that's why it's really important to find that. I think people don't really understand that initially. So 2 pi over b is the period, so it's 1/4, which means that b is 8. That's weird. 8 pi. That's even weirder. Right? So you get 8 pi is equal to, yeah, 8 pi. Crazy. Makes sense though, because if the period is really small, b will be very large, right? And 1/4 is a very small period. So since that's small, b must be large to make that happen. And it also had to have pi in it, because the period doesn't have pi involved, which means that b must have pi, because 2 pi divided by something has to not have pi. So b must be some multiple of pi somehow. All right, so what are we doing? We said if we started at 0, we start at a maximum. That's all you really need to know. Positive cosine. So we're going to go with f of x is a positive cosine. So 30 cosine. We said b was 8 pi. We're starting at 0. And then sinusoidal axis was 15. So there you go. All right, now the key thing, right? We go one increment over. So that's one increment right there. And one increment is 1/16. So we know that that is at x equals 1/16. So actually what you can do is you can actually like fill them all in. The next one I'll do is at x equals 2/16. So just keep moving by one increment. And the one that I'll do after that is going to be at x equals 3/16. And now I just need to worry about the pattern because I already know that the starting points are definitely right. So I got the one that starts at 0. So if I start at the next thing, so think about what happens because it's the same pattern every time. You go positive cosine because you're starting at a max. But if you move over an increment, you're starting in the middle and going to a minimum. So it's a negative sign. So you're going to go positive cosine. Maybe I'll write this down. Where can I write this? So we're going to go positive cosine to negative sine. Then from negative sine, you end up starting at a minimum. So you're at negative cosine. And then from negative cosine, you start an intercept, but you go to a maximum. So you're up to sine. And then once you get to sine, you're just going to like loop back around. So you're going to get cosine again and so on, right? So if we started at cosine, I know the next one must be a negative sine graph. So as long as I move one increment, I'm going to get a negative sine graph. So this will be negative 30 sine of 8 pi, the quantity, x minus 1/16 plus 15. All right, so that's negative sine. So I'm starting in the middle, going to a minimum. So the next one, I'm going to start at a minimum, which must be negative cosine. So this is going to be negative 30 cosine. So this only works if you go consecutive increments. But why are you not going consecutive increments, right? Like the only reason not to do that is if someone's telling you where you have to start. And that's not currently happening. So that's negative cosine. So then you're going to go up to an intercept. And then from the intercept, you go to a maximum. That's positive sine. So being able to picture it a little bit in your head, I think is a good idea. People watching videos always object to anything that I do in my head. And I think that's interesting, but you know, just kind of is. That just kind of is. There's nothing I can do about it. Sometimes you got to do things in your head. Hopefully you're like understanding as you go through these things. So like things that are being done in your head, like make a little more sense. All right, what are we doing here? So I want to start at negative 75/16, which means I got to find what that is coterminal to. So is there a way that I can do that? So I know that the period is 1/4. So that's 4/16. So I'm basically trying to like fake my way through this as much as I can. That's 4/16. So if I multiply that by 20, so that's 20 full rotations. So 20 periods would give me 80/16. Just multiply by 20, right? If I do negative 75/16 plus 20 full periods plus 80/16, that's going to give me 5/16. Now 5/16 is too big. I overshot, but I got in the ballpark, and that's usually all I'm trying to do. So if I subtract one period, so really I should have just used 19 is basically what I'm saying. I'll have 5/16 minus one period is 4/16, leaves me with 1/16. This is what it's coterminal to. This is probably definitely coterminal to 1/16. I'm saying definitely, but like, whoa, what is that? Getting a tech, you know what's happening today? Manned space flight. SpaceX and NASA sending people up today. My phone's getting blown up about that because that's very cool. So anyway, I'm gonna put that over there so it doesn't scare the crap out of me again. That was like Siri level of scaring me. I don't remember what class that video is for, but all right. So I think this is the same as starting at 1/16. So I think that it's gonna be this one. So let's try it. Let's say f of x is, so it's -30 sine 8 pi, quantity x minus negative, so plus 75/16 and plus 15. Okay, I think that if I graph any two of these equations, it's going to match up, but in particular, I want to try to graph the one that starts at 1/16 and the one that starts at whatever that other value is. So I'm going to start a new document. Graph -30 sine, I'll start with the big one. 8 pi times the quantity x plus 75/16 plus 15. Holy cow. Oh yeah, because it has like a really small period. So that means, let me zoom in. Seeing way too much, right? Maybe I'll be more thoughtful about the window. So settings, let's just go -2 to 2. And then on the y-axis, I know it's 15, and I can go up 30, so I'll go, well, 15, and I go down 30 is -15, so let's go -20, and then 15 plus 30 is 45, and I'll just add 5. Give it a little padding, you know? Pretty okay. Still seeing like a ton. So that was that, and then -30 sine of 8 pi times. You can actually already see that it's right because it starts at a maximum at 0, and that's what we thought was happening. But let's just check. Perfect overlaps. We got it. And that's like, it's quite an accomplishment. It feels really good when you get them right. So I'll go back to the notes so we can take a look at it. And again, I kind of like, I chose to find what it was coterminal to by just kind of like playing around with it a little bit, which is definitely something you do, right? Like the period is 1/4, so I know that's 4/16. So I can multiply that by something to get really close to 75. So I chose 20, it was too much, so then I subtracted 1. So I should have gone with 19 initially, but it doesn't matter. Just like get in the ballpark and make it manageable. You can work with it because it's all about finding what it's coterminal to. So 1/16 and -75/16 are coterminal if the period is 1/4. It really depends on what the period is though. So if the period was different, it would be coterminal with something else. And you do have to watch out for that. But anyway, I'm gonna stop this video here, come back in the next video and keep going. So I will see you there.